Are you, Andrew?
Yes.
All right, welcome everybody. Here we are, April 3rd now, Conservation Commission meeting. Do we have any public comments this morning?
Andrew, I had just one. I
Sure,
guess I'm not the public, but,
that's okay.
there, the vast, folks said that somebody was riding a four-wheeler around on the town trails, but I
Mhm.
think that, I don't know if you heard that about it. I think they know who it is, so I think they're taking care of it.
Yes, I was aware that I believe someone accessed the vast trails from the Mud Pond Country Park side.
Yeah,
And I was out with Fellowship of the Wheel last week. We put up some signs. So I haven't heard anything else since last week. Was it last week? I think it was early
Yeah.
last week.
okay, just wanted to
So,
make sure you were aware.
I am aware, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's a kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
yeah.
All right, any other public comments? All right, and let's transition over to the minutes from our last meeting.
My only comment was in 7.2.2. It's just a tiny thing, but as we keep going down, I think it's supposed to say the cultural and community resiliency grant. I think that we might be missing a word.
I move to accept the minutes as amended.
Thank you, Laura. Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave. Any discussion on the motion? Right, all right, all in favor, please say aye.
I,
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? All right, let's roll into our 7:10 agenda item DP 24-14. Solid Waste District Materials Recycling Facility on Redmond Road. Andrew, what do we have going on with this one?
Yes, this is another habitat disturbance assessment. Pull up the staff report here.
And we have some guests for this project.
We do.
Okay.
Greg Dixon is the engineer and Josh from CSWD is also online.
All right, thanks for joining us, Greg and Josh.
Yeah, we also have Tony, who's also with CSWD.
Okay. Thanks, Tony.
All right, so this is a discretionary permit review for the proposed Materials Recovery Center for CSWD on Redmond Road. You may remember we looked at the pre-app recently. The existing facility is on Avenue C, and it is proposed to be moved to Redmond Road. The project includes two parcels. One contains an existing house that will be demolished, and the other is mostly undeveloped. It does have a road up to the Velco laydown yard. The project is proposing a new access road, scale, and laydown area, together with a 68,000 square foot building with an office and a parking lot, a septic system, and a stormwater management system are also proposed. This is in our industrial zoning district east. I will also note that this project does enjoy a partial exemption from our bylaws because the applicant is technically a municipality. It's not super relevant here, but that is something that the DRB will consider as they make conditions. So you last reviewed this on January 17th and made the following recommendations. Habitat disturbance assessment was completed by TRC Environmental Corporation in March. The commission recommended mitigation measures and enhancement measures along the unnamed stream and wildlife corridor that align with the findings of the HDA. The applicant has proposed mitigation and enhancement measures, including a 50-foot vegetated corridor surrounding the unnamed stream. That is 50 feet on each side. The applicant is also proposing to allow the area between Redmond Road and the proposed building to fill in through natural succession. The proposed development does not encroach on any class 2 wetlands or wetland protection buffers associated with those wetlands. It does propose a gravel wetland along Redmond Road where a class 3 wetland currently exists. The applicant is also proposing a 24-foot wide crossing of the unnamed stream with a 30-foot long, 4-foot diameter culvert beneath it. Site plan does not show how watershed protection buffers will be demarcated on the ground. We can discuss that towards the end. It's part of my notes. And they do have a professionally prepared runoff and erosion control plan. So moving into the ERF prioritization, this parcel is considered a medium level priority. There is that smaller parcel within that is low priority. And the subject area is within the significant wildlife habitat area. Therefore, the applicant has done an HDA. The HDA concluded that the project will not have an overall adverse impact on surrounding wildlife habitat. It actually describes how the project will have some, it does describe how the project will impact the open fields and forested portions of the parcel. It also describes how the class 2 wetlands, creation of the buffers and ending of mowing and overall maintenance of that area, and allowing that area to grow back may create some net benefits for wildlife in the area. The biologist recommendations are included in the record. I actually don't know if I included all of them, but there may be some. I think I meant to take that out. So moving on to, let's see. Move down to scenic view shed. Subject area does have some secondary middle ground view shed identified on the map. This area is not impacted by the proposed development. So 2795 does not apply to this project. Moving on to runoff and erosion control plans. The applicant has submitted a erosion prevention and sediment control plan, which demonstrates compliance with 29.5. Because of the area that they're proposing to disturb, they are required to do that. For wetlands protection, there are 4 class 2 wetlands on the parcel. 3 are shown on the site plan. 1 is outside of the view of the plan, and won't be near any development. Where that class 3 wetland is located, there is a proposed gravel wetland. Class 3 wetlands are not generally protected in Williston. However, it allows the bylaw allows the Conservation Commission to require that class 3 wetlands with quote significant functional values to remain in their natural vegetation. The HDA discusses how this class 3 wetland it does not have significant functional value. I think it actually mentions how it may have been something man-made. Moving on to watershed protection buffers, there is a 50-foot buffer requirement for the class 2 wetlands, and also for the high water mark of any unnamed streams. The applicant is not proposing any development within the 50-foot buffers associated with the wetlands. 29961 does state that watershed protection buffers will remain undeveloped. It does also describe how the applicant can propose the restoration of some of the buffers where they are impacted. This would be for the unnamed stream. The Conservation Commission can discuss the proposed planting with the applicant. Leave that up to you, and maybe Greg, you can discuss that once we're finished. Once I'm finished. And as I said, the crossing of that unnamed stream is a 24-foot crossing. There is a culvert underneath it that's proposed with a 4-foot diameter. The applicant is proposing to push material into the culvert to create a natural bottom. And then lastly, 29997 requires that watershed protection buffers are marked on the ground as well as on final plans. The Conservation Commission should discuss this recommendation and how the watershed protection buffers are marked on the ground in final plans. And then I noted where development is proposed adjacent to those buffers. Because many of the buffers are in that interior of the parcel, I don't know if there's any value in marking their entirety. So especially where it's adjacent to development, I think that's where you should discuss that. What follows are some findings and drafted recommendations. That is all.
All right, thank you, Andrew. I guess I'll turn it over to our guests, Greg and Josh and Tony. Do you have anything you'd like to add before we get into discussion with the rest of the conservation members, commission members?
Yeah, sure. I did note a few things. The erosion prevention sediment control plan, that'll actually be a moderate risk, not a low risk. We are disturbing we're disturbing 9.35 acres. So that met the threshold to move up into the larger permit. So it will be a 90/20 moderate risk permit, which has a few more elements to it, mostly monitoring during construction by the contractors and some pretty heavy reporting that they have to maintain throughout construction. And I'll also be involved with checking those reports, as well as having some sediment monitoring as necessary throughout construction. So that'll be a little bit more depth in sort of reviewing sediment control during the project. I think we had a good discussion last week about, or not last week, but last time we met, about the stream. I have since had a lot of back and forth with state rivers and streams. They actually are not, we are not getting a permit because they do not permit intermittent streams, which this stream is. So they reviewed my plans and said, everything looks good, but we do not need a permit. And that was kind of the end of that discussion. But we are trying to maintain 50 feet on either side of sort of the top of bank is how we created that setback. We are going to put some trees in there to provide some shade for that crossing. I have preliminarily shown, I believe it's about 33 or 34 trees kind of throughout the project. I am not a landscape architect, nor do I know very much about trees. So I was waiting for the habitat assessment to kind of make those recommendations for the existing vegetation on site, which TRC gave us a lot of different trees and shrubs that we could use in those areas. So we expect to diversify that 33 or even add as you deem necessary to that amount to meet Williston's regulations of not having just one particular species. So there will probably, I think 11% is the maximum that you can have of one species. So you'll see probably close to 10 or 11 different species. But we are trying to make them more larger trees so they actually do provide shade and start to build in some of those areas that we're kind of showing spotted throughout. To bring up the culvert a little bit more, it is a 4-foot culvert. I'm proposing an HDPE culvert. We are going to push that 1.5 feet into the ground and actually then push material into it. So the material underneath it will be at the elevation of the intermittent stream as it is today. That'll also mean that the width of that culvert will be at its greatest 4 feet at sort of that level. It provides enough hydraulic capacity to meet that stream. The culvert downstream of this is actually a 36-inch CMP that crosses Redmond Road. So even with material pushed into it, has more than sufficient hydrology to let water through that area. So we don't expect impoundment of any water or creation of a pond or anything on that side. As discussed, we are staying out of all the class 2 wetlands and their buffers. During construction, their limits will be marked with both reinforced silt fence as well as construction demarcation fence, or what I call construction barrier fence, which is just a 4-inch bright orange tape that is wrapped around it. So it'll be pretty apparent during construction that they cannot get into those areas. During operations, the swales which kind of surround the whole project, half of which are for stormwater collection and then bringing that stormwater to the treatment areas. And then on the uphill side, we actually have, we also have swales for kind of pushing water around the project. So we're not treating all the upslope water and also not adding contaminants to that water. So there's upslope diversion swales as well. So I think just all those swales, which are between 1 to 2 feet deep, will also kind of limit people moving into those areas. But we are happy to also add kind of those signs. Actually, I have an example right behind me of a sign that we put out for a lot of other projects. Really, the only few places we're close to those buffers are kind of off of the in this plan, you can kind of see the corner of the building where it says proposed building, kind of that area right there where Andrew's highlighting, and straight down on that, also the access road that goes up to the parking lot. There's a small class 2 wetland. Yeah, that area too. So there are a few areas that we could add these signs as deemed needed by the commission, but I feel just those swales, those deep swales, are kind of going to keep people out of those areas. And also we're letting them passively fill in. So I also expect them to be pretty thick with vegetation. And also it's not very easy they're wetlands. So it's not easy to move around in them. I believe that's kind of a wrap on things that I wanted to sort of bring up further. I'm happy to answer any questions and facilitate more conversation.
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. It's great to hear you taking all those measures for the project. I just have one quick question and then I'll open up to the rest of the commissioners. So on the stream that I think I heard either you or Andrew say that's an intermittent stream. Is there any history of flooding there now? I'm glad to see you're installing the culvert the way it is. That'll also help with any kind of organism passage or whatever too. But any concerns about flooding from that particular stream that block the road?
No, we haven't noticed it from the 36-inch that's down by Redmond Road, which has smaller capacity than what we're proposing. These streams might even be closer to sort of drainage ditches, especially you can see some kind of meet into them. They're not flowing constantly. So I do not expect impoundment of water at all from the project.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Greg or the CSWD crew before we get into the findings and recommendations?
Andrew recommended a couple things in the staff write-up that we discussed with the applicant. I noted 2 in the watershed protection buffers, the planting within the 50-foot buffer associated with the unnamed stream, and as well as the markers, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I heard Greg say that they're gonna be planting 33 trees or so. I guess, the only question I had is, I heard you say that the TRC recommended a suite of different trees for you. I assume that also those trees, species that are on there are vetted with the list of native tree species that the town has provided somewhere.
So the trees that TRC identified are the existing sort of trees on site. And so they're the trees and species that exist currently on site. I don't know if I did not review them if they meet Williston's form, but it's the ones that are on site and also the ones that are not considered invasive.
As long as they're not, looking at a bunch of buckthorn and whatever, that's good, okay. And then for marking out the buffers on the ground. Is this where you're talking about with signs or were you gonna use boulders or something for that?
As discussed, sort of with all the swales and stuff like that, I think that provides a pretty solid demarcation and limits the work of traffic or pushing into some of those areas accidentally, which is kind of the intent of boulders or signs. I think we'd be more than happy to add signs if you felt they were necessary in those areas where we're kind of right up against the buffer. There's not very many of those areas, so I suspect it'd only be maybe a dozen small signs that if you would like us to erect those, we definitely can.
What about the area that is left for natural vegetation? And you made a point of saying not mowing that area. That to me would seem like the area of biggest risk, that if the new facilities manager comes in and they just mow it.
I can do one of 2 things. I mean, we can put signs kind of all along that area. If you'd like, I could also create a sort of simplified plan that CSWD could keep on file for any new facilities manager that comes to work at the facility. And so they would have sort of a no-go zone on areas that there just should not be in. And I can provide that to Williston to share with the commission if that would be something that could help.
Possibly, yeah, I guess the only reason I'm hesitating on that, I like the idea, the only reason I'm hesitating is that typically this conversation we have right now would be the last touch point that the Conservation Commission has in this process, assuming it goes all the way through to permit approval.
We could make that a condition of the permit. I'd be happy to create sort of a management plan that they keep on file at the facility that ensures that everyone who starts working there, not just the people who started the project, but the people who will continue the operation of the facility, know that these areas are kind of off limit.
Thoughts from other folks on the committee? Would that work for you?
That sounds good to me.
Reed has his hand raised.
Reed?
Yeah, I think that's a good step. I also just wondered along the revegetated area on either side of the intermittent stream, if there are already boulders on site, rather than moving them, they could be rearranged along the edge. I think it is, I like the idea of some sort of management recommendations, management plan for that area that helps future staff know.
I think I caught that. So you were, I think you're kind of cutting out right at the beginning, Reed. So you were suggesting, did I hear you suggesting, boulders along the top of the intermittent stream?
Yeah, the vegetative buffer that's being proposed to be added along the sides of that intermittent stream. If there are already boulders on site or rocks that need to be moved, they could be used to create a visual barrier so that maintenance staff, et cetera, would be able to tell that that's a different zone than what's around it.
So unfortunately, I don't anticipate a whole lot of boulders on site. I just have not seen that in this area.
Okay.
Could we change that with either the signs and or add bushes? So add sort of vegetation bushes that obviously somebody's just not going to drive over something that was clearly installed, like a bush or a sign.
Yeah, landscaping buffer would also be an option for me, Eric.
Okay. Sounds good. Other questions or comments? All right. Thanks. So anything else on those for watershed protection buffers? Looks like that's what Andrew had flagged to us. Okay. All right, moving on to the findings and recommendations. Andrew has 10 findings listed here for us. Does anyone have any questions or comments on any of those? I feel like they capture what was in the detailed report above. I guess one question either for Andrew or Greg. So finding 9 in finding 9, the proposed project is considered a high risk development. Is this different from what you were describing, Greg, where you said that I think I have my notes. Medium. You're talking about the erosion sediment control plan.
Yes.
Moderate risk.
Moderate risk.
So the state has kind of 3 thresholds of construction stormwater. They have a low risk general permit 90/20. They have a moderate risk general permit 90/20, and then they have an indirect, not an indirect, but an INDC. I'm blanking this morning what it stands for, but it's kind of a even higher threshold than the moderate risk. This project falls in the moderate risk category, mostly because of soil and slope on the site and just overall disturbance. The project, if it was under 2 acres, would likely be deemed low risk. But obviously this is a larger project, so we are disturbing 9.35 acres. That will be limited to active disturbance of only 5 acres throughout construction. And we'll have temporary soil disturbance or soil stabilization sort of to keep that 5 acre threshold throughout construction. This project is a little bit easier because nearly half of that 9.35 acres will be covered in impervious surface, pavement, stone, or building. So once those are permanently stabilized with stone, they are no longer considered open area. So we are working right now with state construction stormwater. I'm in the process of their technical review. There will be probably 3 to 4 phases of the project to maintain that 5 acre threshold, which will be identified in that permit.
Okay.
I think the difference.
Yeah, so I guess just what I was wondering is if we have it wrong, is this correct in the findings? It is a high risk, not medium risk development.
So it's high risk according to our bylaw.
Yeah.
Our
So-
bylaw has a different threshold than state law, and I
Okay.
believe that's because the state regulations have been updated more recently than our bylaw.
Okay,
Maybe an asterisk on,
that's what I was gonna suggest. Can you, I mean, the whole thing applies to, it's connected to Williston bylaws, but just to be abundantly clear, can you just amend that to let's say something like the proposed project is considered a high risk development according to WDB 29.5. That's the right bylaw, right?
Mhm.
All right, any other
Yeah.
questions or comments on the findings? We have 3 recommendations we can look at.
I just had a quick comment on, I guess it's number 10. It seems like we have a little bit of a mix of findings and recommendations that are in the findings. I don't know, maybe that's some change in the way we're doing this, but it seems like in the past, we've had findings which point out, here's an issue, and then recommendations, commonly even the same number, like
Yeah,
finding number 9 has a response number 9. And for example, in number 10, it says, talks about the wetlands, but then it says no development is proposed. So I think that should be in the recommendation.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but
no, you're right, Gary. That's good observation.
yeah. And then I think somewhere, I guess it would be in the recommendation. I think not only proposing that no development is proposed, but no impacts or nothing should be done in the wetlands, even if no driving equipment through, nothing, no mowing in the future, no, basically leave it alone and let it do its job. So does that make sense to change these a little bit? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right, it does. So looking down through the findings.
Eric, I have a comment about that.
Okay, go ahead, Reed.
Yeah, I actually found, it seemed to me that the separation between findings and recommendations is appropriate here because no development is proposed within the class 2 wetlands isn't what we're recommending. It's just a fact of the plan. What's on the plan. If there had been proposed development within the class 2 wetlands, then the recommendation would be to amend the plan so that there is not. So I just wanted to say I thought the findings were findings, not recommendations here.
Okay. The other thing I think, Reed, at least in the past, it's been easier for me to look at the same numbers in the findings and recommendation, even if it's just a short statement in the recommendation, like a site
Based on
plan will
finding
be-
3. Yeah.
Yeah, you can look and you can say, okay, here's the finding. What was the conclusion? What should be done in response to that finding? So we'd have 10 recommendations also.
Yeah, Gary, we were doing that once upon a time. I don't know that
Yeah.
I feel like we transitioned away from that recently.
Yeah,
I
okay.
agree.
I
remember
just
that
found it
conversation,
easier
I
to
liked it
see.
too, but yeah. Thoughts from other commission members?
I guess I'll let that.
I guess
Um,
I do agree that they should be separated. For what, I mean,
Okay.
it's just a lot cleaner and for the next group of people to read, I think if the reality is a lot of people are skimming, right? And so to have it with really clear headings and shorter bullet points in 2 sections, I think makes it more digestible more quickly. For whatever that's worth.
Meaning, so just so I'm interpreting you correctly, Ken, you're thinking along the lines of what Gary was recommending?
Yeah,
Split it.
I mean, this is more coming from maybe this is actually why Gary and I both think this. This is more coming from an academic context where I'm reviewers don't even read my grant proposals, and so I have to like make really clear headings and then like make the bullet points under them very explicit, right? Like, because they're busy people and they're reading like 4 100-page documents or whatever. And so now I just think everybody reads like that.
All right. Thoughts
But
from other,
Kim, would you want to see 10 recommendations, even if it said there was no recommendation based on finding number X, or are you
No,
saying you like the
no, I
recommendations being short?
yeah, I just like them being short. Or even like what I was originally thinking was like, oh, well, what if we had a table with like when Gary was first talking, I was like, oh, what if it was a table with 2 columns? And then like if there wasn't a recommendation, it would just be blank. But I actually don't think we should do that because it requires Andrew to like make a table, which is not like a super great use of his time.
And we might have more than one recommendation for a finding too. So I think
Totally.
they have to be separate.
Yeah.
so, okay,
Sorry,
so, I think that's a conversation for another day and if we want to talk about reformatting the findings and recommendations. We don't necessarily need to do it inside of this project here today. I'm also looking at time and we need to move on to the agenda. Interesting conversation though. I have some thoughts on that as well.
I'll make a comment on the recommendation.
Okay.
Based on the earlier conversation, I'm wondering if there needs to be an acknowledgement of the signage or I'm looking at, number 2 and 3. Really, we talked about whether signs, boulders, or some form of identifiable permanent marker of like a no-mow zone or a wetland area, don't do anything in here, needs to be reflected in that plan and therefore reflected in the recommendations.
I think that would be good to include.
So we could either say final plans shall demarcate and indicate signage, or
And
Permanent
Other
landscape.
other physical demarcation. Yep.
I can reference the section of the bylaw. If you remember at our last meeting, it discusses boulders, fences, or trees. If you'd like, I can.
I believe the developer proposed hedges too, or the
Yeah.
consultant.
Yeah, so if you want to be more specific than that, we can say exactly what you
Yeah.
want.
We just want the final plans to indicate that,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So location of signage, the location of shrubbery or whatever they end up using.
So I have on here, final plan shall demarcate delineated watershed protection buffers with signage. And then we could say or vegetation or planting, if you want to keep it general.
I think we can keep it general.
Okay.
I
think
do, and
that's
then the applicant can demonstrate what they're going to do.
I think that's a good idea to put in that canned language every time we do this, just so, you know, everybody's treated equally and they know what the options are.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
I like signage or physical demarcation. I thought that left it open.
Yeah, you could say signage or physical demarcation. And then reference the section that has all the options in it.
Yeah.
Andrew.
So if we do find boulders, we'd be happy to use those. I don't know if we will.
Andrew, can you help me out? I'm blowing it up on the screen a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you. And do we want to also include that same language in number 3 as well? That unnamed stream seems right for a potential, 20 years from now, no one remembers that we were trying to keep that. So I think my suggestion would just be to add the same language, signage or physical demarcation, recognizing the unnamed.
For number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Can you just copy and paste that new language into number 3 as well, Andrew?
Mhm. And do you want it just where it's immediately adjacent, like near that crossing, or do you want the whole? I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah, you're right, it is.
Yep.
Look at the site plans.
To me, the most important thing is that it's visible from that road, but I can also see that it would be important to mark it at the end of the property line.
That's a possibility there.
Yeah, I do think that the holes, I mean, I know it probably feels like overkill, but you know, it's a municipal site. It's gonna be there for a long time. It's not a bad idea to have signs, you know, every like, I don't know, 50 to 100 feet or something, you know.
What's the total length of that area? See a scale.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out, actually. It's really hard for me to actually wrap my head around just what size we're looking at.
Greg, do you have an approximation? I can
Yeah,
go
I-
grab the plans if you want.
I got the drawing open right now, so give me 2 seconds. But I think it's pretty close to 1,000 feet.
Yeah, so 50 would be overkill, but like,
300 feet.
It's a
Yeah.
football field.
a couple signs along the length of that riparian zone so that no one, or signs, boulders, whatever.
I think it's 750 feet. I think there'll be areas that are clearly less demarked by existing vegetation. I mean, probably of that 750 feet, about half of it is already in like woods. So you would have to kind of terrain through the forest, which we don't plan on doing, but we can definitely mark the whole 750 feet if that's what you need.
An appropriate level of signage.
Yeah.
Space.
Okay, is that clear enough?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, great.
Eric, I just had a quick comment on the recommendations.
Okay, I
I know.
and before we do that, Reed, but just looking at Andrew's last sentence, says that. So the part where it's in number 3, physical demarcation, where it is immediately adjacent to grading, stormwater, et cetera, that's not what we're saying, right? We're talking about for the.
Yeah, I think we can just delete that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, go
Agreed.
ahead, Reed.
Yeah, that was actually part of what I was going to say. But just generally, I wanted to say thank you to Greg and the CSWD team for getting creative on that area, because it's, I think it's going to be a good situation for wildlife connectivity and also watershed health. I think it's a really good compromise. I'm pleased with it.
Yep, I agree. I appreciate
Yeah.
team working with us on these. All right, so as far as the formatting goes, we are over time by about 10 minutes. I think that we don't, as a group anyway, thinking back to when we reviewed these types of projects in the past, we've had a lot more findings, recommendations. That as far as my perspective on this, we don't have any real major concerns. So I'm comfortable leaving it formatted like it is. I will suggest that maybe we can find time on either next agenda or upcoming agenda where we can take a look at some options or discuss some options for perhaps reformatting these findings and recommendations to make them clearer and perhaps more streamlined. But I suggest we leave it like it is for this one and think about reformatting it at a future date.
Agree.
Yeah.
Fine
Folks
with that.
online? Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on the findings or recommendations for this project? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve as amended?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Kim.
I think I beat you.
All right, we'll give Kim the credit for that one. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right. Awesome. Thanks. Thanks, Greg and Tony and Josh for your time today and for so thoroughly addressing our comments on this project.
Thank you all for reviewing it.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
I know we're late. I do have a question as a point of just clarification for mine. So when that project comes through, we'll get a final plan. As a general matter, who is responsible in the town for making sure that the site is actually built according to like how the permit is? Like all the signs are put up and all of that. Like who's responsible for making sure that that happens the way that we sort of sign off on it?
For that is the zoning administrator, and so that's actually, could be Matt, Melinda, or Emily now.
Okay.
When this site is finished, when they're ready to occupy the space, they'll contact us, request an inspection and a CO. And we'll actually have one of those zoning administrators go out and inspect the site and see that the site shows what the plan shows.
Right.
So
that's the importance of having those final plans, identify that there will be signage there, is so that Melinda or whoever, when they're on site, will say like, where are the signs?
Right, and final plans are that kind of, they're the be all and end all from there forward. Once they're signed, they're the kind of the master document, and the administrative permit that they pull to actually build the facility and pay all their fees will basically just have those final plans attached. So that is the final document that really stays in storage, and 20 years down the line, that's what people will be looking at.
And sort of, go ahead.
So I was going to add, David, that the DRB's conditions of approval also go into the record. So there's two things. There's the plans, and then there's also what the final conditions of approval were from the DRB. And both things are reviewed by planning staff for compliance. In theory, if we have enough staffing, to get to every site and review things detailed.
Yeah, and I would also say that mention that Public Works has a role to play in that as well, and they're more in tune with our stormwater requirements. And I'm actually not sure if they will go out and inspect that site, but given the scale, I think they will.
Yeah, I would think so too. Thanks.
Yep. All right, so do we have guests coming in for this next project?
So I had contacted the engineer, Graham, from O'Leary Burke.
Okay.
I do not see him.
Okay.
So if you want to, we can go ahead.
Let's do that. And if the engineer logs in, great. If not, then I can follow up with questions as needed, I guess.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so what do we have going on with this project? We reviewed this one a couple of years ago. I gotta say, I don't have a lot of. My memory's not as crisp on this one as it was for the last projects.
So this one is, this goes back, it's similar age vintage to the Ricky Vista subdivision, which we reviewed in the last meeting. It is at 98 Snowdrift Lane, which is in the ARZD. It is a 10.07 acre parcel, which means that it does not need to meet the requirements of open space subdivision. Now, the proposal is for a 2-lot subdivision, create one 6.11 acre lot for the existing single family home. And then lot 2 will be a 3.96 acre parcel for the proposed single family home. The lot 2 will have access off of Snowdrift Lane, separate from 98 Snowdrift. Snowdrift Lane is a private drive. So the Conservation Commission reviewed the pre-app proposal for this project in October of 2022. DRB then reviewed it in November, and it went to growth management in 2023, where it received allocation for 1 dwelling unit equivalent as requested. Looking at the recommendations from October of 22, habitat disturbance assessment was conducted by Fitzgerald Environmental Associates in January of 2024. The Conservation Commission requested that applicant limit the extent of forest clearing to the greatest degree possible, to reduce impacts on the significant wildlife habitat area. And the applicant is proposing around 3/4 of an acre of forest clearing for the proposed home site. We can discuss this later. That's part of my discussion. The building envelope is also shown on the plan. And this is where I get to it. The clearing is to accommodate a proposed on-site wastewater disposal system, which does comply with our bylaw. And then lastly, the applicant has submitted a runoff and erosion control checklist, given the amount of clearing and grading they're proposing. So this project only contains core habitat area. Scroll to the ERF prioritization. That is prioritized as low. You may remember we looked at the two parcels to the south. And this is kind of that general area we were discussing 2 meetings ago. Looking at the significant wildlife habitat area and the HDA concluded that the development will result in no undue impact on wildlife habitat. And it states that the clearing of the 3/4 of an acre forest edge will not significantly increase forest fragmentation or inhibit wildlife movement through the study area to the large interior forest block southeast of the parcel. Moving to watershed health. The project is not disturbing more than 2 acres and does not contain steep slopes. This makes it under our bylaw a low risk development, which means that it needs to be accompanied by a runoff and erosion control checklist, which the applicant has provided. WDB 29.5 has specific requirements for them as they continue working on the project. Wetlands protection. There were no suspected wetlands on the parcel. The HDA does identify 2 unmapped drainage areas in the study area. I can show them on the site plan. They are not immediately adjacent to the proposed development. Then looking at lots and home sites, WDB 31.9 establishes this clearing limits for new home sites. The half-acre building envelope establishes where the home and yard and any accessory structures for the site may be developed. This does not include access driveways, utility lines, or areas cleared for underground components of on-site wastewater. The proposed building envelope for lot 2 is half an acre, and the applicant is proposing greater than half an acre of clearing to accommodate the wastewater disposal system. The draft recommendation has been added to minimize forest clearing. What follows are some findings and recommendations. Yeah, we can look at the site.
Excellent. Thanks, Andrew. All right, so any questions or comments on this one before we get into the findings and recommendations? Seems like a fairly straightforward project. It is, I'll note, in that same area that we've been talking about recently, for land conservation. I guess I would add to I'm writing a staff report for this, and when I wrote the staff notes here, let me pull up the plan so everybody can see it. It looks like the applicant did add in a proposed right-of-way easement for a future trail. It's relatively short, along Old Creamery. That was not part of their pre-application plan, and there actually wasn't any mention of it in the narrative. And so
Can you point out where that is on here? Is it along Snowdrift? Oh, right there. Okay.
along Old Creamery Road. So it's approximately 100 feet. It's something that we can, I can ask the applicant about, but worth mentioning.
Does the town map identify anything on Old Creamery?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So if, you know, thinking back to our conversation a couple of meetings ago about land conservation and trails in this neck of the woods or this neck of the town. I don't think we had identified this parcel as being the candidate parcels. And looking at the way they have it laid out now, I'm not sure how much it would contribute to that.
It's a bit west of our existing trail easement on the far side of Old Creamery. It's further to the east. Like 3 parcels over is where the existing easement is on the far side.
Right, yeah, okay, so,
This easement looks like it's a multi-use trail easement, like that.
like a
The one
bike
along the
path.
road, yeah. Mhm.
Great, well, if they wanna put it there, then, okay, thanks.
We got 100 feet.
Yep. To start. All right, so I guess this, this parcel maybe doesn't necessarily play into that concept that we have for this area. So maybe we just leave that alone. And thank them for the 100-foot easement for the multi-use path, in the future. Other questions or comments on this one?
I like the short driveways.
Yep.
That's the main thing I'm seeing here is that it really does look like they're not dissecting that forest block, even though it's a small one.
Yep.
It looks really good.
Okay, any comments or questions on the findings and on the findings? Let's start with that.
It's a little small.
Yes, we're,
There we go.
Okay, findings and recommendations. Questions or comments on those, on findings?
I'm good.
Anyone else? All right, so then we have 2 recommendations. First one is to show compliance with WDB 29.5 runoff and erosion control standards. And then second is minimizing forest clearing beyond the half-acre building envelope. Any comments or suggestions for those or other recommendations we might consider?
I just wanted to say, I don't know if it seems like there should, even though they've already completed the wildlife habitat assessment, it might be in there as a recommendation. You know, we could say it's completed, but just put it in there that it was required, or does that make sense at all, or should we not bother since it's been completed already?
I think it's in the findings, isn't it? That a habitat disturbance assessment.
Oh, is it the?
In number 5?
Yeah, 5.
Number
Oh, yeah,
5,
number
yeah.
5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that-
Well, maybe we don't need it then. It's just nice to see it as a recommendation as anyone would if it's in a protected area.
Yeah. I think we have to remember that our recommendations go to the DRB, and if we recommend that, they're gonna be like, why are you recommending this? They've already done it. So
Right.
yeah.
That's why I was looking at the table that Andrew prepared on, I don't know where it is here, where it has like recommendation versus applicant's response. That's a kind of table that would be nice, almost like finding recommendation type table, just showing that it was completed.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well, and I was gonna suggest we take a look at that concept
Yeah.
for when we bring this up. Look at
Yeah,
this.
the
for-
pre-app to discretionary is so helpful to see what we recommended before and what's been done in response.
Right.
Any other, thoughts on the recommendations for this project? If not, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you, Laura.
Gary second.
Gary seconded. Okay, thanks, Gary. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. That was a quick one, thank you. All right, next, a few minutes early for Green Up Day. I think I see Deb is logged in though, excellent. Who's taking the lead on this one is,
So I would I'll talk a little bit about our town planning for the Green Up Day event. And then maybe we can transition to working with Deb and Reed as well on some of the plans. And then I think we should also have a more broad conversation,
Sure.
similar to last year. The one change that we are trying to make this year, we are having the town fair. We're
Right.
hoping to have a table that is shared by the Conservation Commission and the Energy Committee. Emily and I are spearheading the organization, and what we're hoping is that we'll have volunteers, including hopefully yourselves, actually getting out to green up in specific locations during Green Up Day. So what we're looking for is to have a plan, basically, or to have volunteers sign up for a specific section of road and tell us if they're available, what time they're going to green up that location. And the idea is that last year we had a lot of people who come and maybe they're on their own, maybe they don't know town quite as well as some of our volunteers, and they don't really know where to go. Or where the areas that need greening up are. And so the hope would be that our volunteers may go out with their bags and meet some other community members out in those locations.
Green Up ambassadors.
So, yes, yes. So that is something that Emily and I are working on. I would just note that to expect an email upcoming from us, trying to get some buy-in for that. It's a Saturday morning.
Which Saturday morning is it?
It's May the 4th, and
May the
here, I'll
4th,
show
okay.
The Star Wars Day, and we've got
Yes,
a poster
yes.
this year.
Oh, love it.
Put it so you guys can see online. So hopefully you'll start seeing the posters around town as well. We do have some interest, and then the other thing I'll mention is Green Up Day as an organization is trying to set a world record this year by greening up the entirety of Route 100. And so-
100?
Yes.
Holy smokes.
So-
Heard about this.
So they're looking for people to sign up, very similar to what I was just saying, for certain stretches of Route 100. And it is part of a world record attempt. And so if that is something you're interested in, maybe let me or Emily know. And I think if there were other Willistonians who wanted to be part of that group, then we could coordinate that. So we have a Williston group that's going out and greening up one stretch, maybe north of Stowe or something from here would make sense.
Let's talk about the ambassador.
Sure.
I like the idea very much. I have two kids, preteens roughly, so like cleaning up Mountain View Road is not exactly like high on my list, but it's desperately needed, right? So what kind of areas are you thinking about? Because we generally try to go out as a family. Yeah, so what areas is the town targeting?
So we would like to see some of those higher risk. We have a lot of fast roads with very low shoulder in
Yeah.
town. And we're not asking you to go out there with your kids along Mountain View Road or 2A. But if you did have a location that you were planning on going and you would wanted to sign up and encourage others to come out to that location. I think that is also a more broad goal of mine, is to have more places in mind, and I think the balance we strike is, I don't necessarily want to be recommending like, oh, you should take your kids to this place, because I don't want anyone to get hurt. It should be, you know, up to their discretion on where they want to go. So maybe if you do have kids, and I'm speaking to you and everybody that are going to join you, maybe if you could, in the next month or so, try to come up with an area, and then maybe other families with kids would go out to that location as well.
Yeah. I guess, hearing what David's saying and agreeing, because I live off of Mountain View myself, another way to look at it would be if the town, if you have a suite of different locations that you like to target, that are both on roads like Mountain View with a lot of traffic, and maybe off roads. They're on roads without a lot of traffic, then, you know, then the volunteers, the ambassadors, or whatever you wanna call them, can pick areas that work best for them.
Okay.
Those are unique situations. Another suggestion or thought is, does the town have any way or capacity to install some sort of temporary traffic calming measures on roads like Mountain View for the day? Like even just like putting out cones or something somehow, I don't know, something that can get people to slow down.
Yeah.
Because I also would like to go on Mountain View Road, but I also am not comfortable doing it myself, let alone my kids. That's my part of it.
Sure.
Yeah, like a green up day safety zone or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. I have also just observed that Green Up Day is the first day where that CSWD drop-off zone is just swamped with people. There is so much traffic on that road with people dropping off in, you know, into Redmond Road, that, it's just doubly unsafe, because it seems like there's even an abnormally large amount of traffic, and they all have trailers and like stuff hanging off the back, you know. I think traffic calming would be a great idea, anything like that to, you know, make it feel like a safer space. And that's also true, I think, for Williston Road as well. I mean, anything to calm traffic on that day where areas where it's urgently needed for the cleanup would be really helpful.
Okay. That's something I'd be happy to ask Public Works about. I don't know about police, but if Public Works could do something with signage, or have some staff members out in specific locations like Mountain View Road.
Yeah, I like the idea of cones, or even, especially like in that intersection of Mountain View, Redmond, or the top of the hill, to have cones with that bright orange fluorescent ribbon, sort of like connecting them to sort of make it clear that, like, you know, cleanup is happening and, you know, right there. That could, I mean, we're probably overthinking it, but boy, that would be nice. That's the level of like demarcation that I would need to feel safe on.
the roadside protection buffer.
Yeah, yeah, or just, you know, as everyone knows, a multi-use path.
Oh, that's an idea, David.
Yeah, can we build that for Green Up Day?
All right, so we'll look for more information from you, but we can perhaps put calendar holds on our calendars for the
sure.
morning of May 4th.
May the 4th.
It's the morning, right? Or is it all day?
It is.
It's whenever you want it to be, really.
It is technically all day, and you can go before and bring up throughout the week and pick up bags early. I believe the town fair this year will be starting at 9. We will probably have people there before then that you can pick up bags from if you'd like.
Right. And so so in the past, at least the past 2 years anyway, Conservation Commission members have staffed the Conservation Commission table at the 10. Are you also looking for us to do that, or are you gonna be handling that?
So I will be there. I would encourage you to, if you want to do both, you want to choose one. I think that was what I was hoping that we would also talk about, is what you're hoping is, what would you like to see at that table? What kind of topics would you like to be discussing?
Okay. I don't remember what we had last year.
It was Simon and Matt at a table, and they were throwing little fuzzy balls at elements of the 2050 plan.
That was town plan. I believe we also had some outreach stuff for landowners for conservation, with just informational kind of handouts.
So presumably we still have those or can reproduce those. Okay.
So we could go for something similar. And then I think this is where we could also talk with Deb if you wanna talk about your goals for No Mow May, and then there's also the kind of de-lawning America idea.
Sure. I can't remember if I had updated this group about the collaboration with American Meadows, but they're offering to donate 500 packets of wildflower meadow pollinator friendly seeds that can be given out to the community, which seems like a really nice way to talk about reducing your lawn. So that's gonna be the push this year. It's No Mow May, but also think about keeping a patch for the pollinators year long, or just having one section of lawn this year that you don't mow, and instead you can plant flowers. So that's kind of the goal for the initiative this year. And the Williston Observer is going to hold a spot for that for an article towards the end of April. So I'm going to try to figure out how to talk about that in the article. Does anybody want to help me as an editor after I write it? Just to proofread. Just throwing that out there. So
Sure, Deb, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you so much. So I should have something by the middle of April, which is coming up. So yeah, I would love somebody else to just look at it. And then apparently we can have a demonstration garden near the disc golf area, where we can maybe have signs saying something, about creating a mini meadow, no mow area. And American Meadows would donate seeds for that. I'm happy to help plant that.
Tell us more, Deb, about how that conversation developed. I know that you were trying to find a
Andrew,
spot.
do you wanna take that on? Because you were able to get them to agree to that.
Sure. So Deb and I had met 2 weeks ago now, last week. We had met and discussed the possibility for a No Mow May demonstration area. And then also something more substantial that remains past May, that more of a pollinator garden. And I talked to Todd and Bruce. Talking to Todd, I think this area here, this is Central School. This area here near the skate park was used last year. And talking to Todd, it sounds like, just based on the location, the grass doesn't grow very well there. And
it's very sandy and dry.
So he suggested that maybe a different location is used, and so we looked at some different places, both near Central School and Allenbrook, and we talked about this location here. This is the rec path, and the disc golf course is in this area, and you can actually see there's a practice hole right here. And along this strip, there's a fair amount of grass, and what Todd was saying is that, that's not an area that sees an especially high amount of use, but it is very visible. And so we're talking about using that location as a more permanent area to maybe plant some perennial species that then we could have down the road some signage that is more permanent there to display that initiative. Todd did say that he's willing to also help with this. He has a tiller that attaches to one of the tractors and could help with the planting. What I was thinking, and I've been talking with both Deb and Reed, that we might take a trip out there with Todd and just talk about it.
I would
And
welcome walking the site to see how to make it, what it might look like and how to advertise it to the public.
yeah, I think that would be great. So that's a goal. I think that would be relatively soon, and I would refer to Deb or Reed or someone else on when planting that makes the most sense. But it's an idea. Todd seemed interested. I think we need final approval from the manager's office because it is town land, but it's planting.
I have a general question about the flowers in place of grass, which I really like, and I've got a spot in my yard that I'm not mowing anymore and letting it sort of do its thing. Can I like, and kind of serve to this purpose is like, not everyone has a tiller. Most people will not want to till up their yard to plant grass. Can you?
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
A lot of work.
it's a lot of work and it's kind of ugly and a bit of an eyesore and will, like, what do you mean no mow May? Like, you're literally raising your grass to the bare ground. So how is that helpful? Like, can you just sprinkle the seeds on dormant turf at like right now when the grass is not tall and expect that you would basically get flowers growing in place of the turf?
You really need to have soil contact without anything else competing with them in order for that to grow. If you don't want to till, you can put down cardboard and then a layer of leaves and then compost and maybe some topsoil, and then you can put seeds in that, and eventually the cardboard is going to break down, but in the meantime it should be smothering what is there existing. So it's a bit of a process, but if you don't want to till, that's a good natural way to do it. And you can, do it in phases, but you might get some germination with the seeds, but you're not going to get that, you're not going to get the flowers that you're imagining, like
So
wildflower.
I see a couple of hands up, but I'm just gonna throw out that, from what I've read in landscaping materials is to overseed a lawn with grass seed. I've seen recommendations where you mow the grass, this goes against like everything I've learned, but you mow the grass very short, like it's almost as low as your blade will go. And then put your seed down, for grass seed and as a way to overseed your lawn. I wonder if that would work instead, because I like Dave, I'm thinking about areas where I wanna do this as well, and I just don't have the time, capacity, or the tools to do all of that
Yeah.
for a large area. But mowing it very short, I could do that.
Right.
Yeah, it's just grass is so dense that it's going to outcompete any other seeds that you put down there. But I see other people have their hands up, so I'll let them jump in.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
Well, first I'll just say that we had like an old squash bed that was abandoned and like just had crabgrass growing in it, and our kids like hand weeded it, and we thought we got every little bit of grass out that you can get with children helping you, and then put wildflower seeds down, and like the like little bits of grass that we didn't get took over, and we got almost no flowers. So just like, yeah, you have to it's like you have to, it has to be like,
You gotta smother it.
yeah, you have to smother it. The thing I was originally going to say is that it strikes me that this location is close to the school, and that the school has a garden and a gardening club, and apparently a chicken club also that one of my children is interested in.
Yes.
And so I don't know if we like need school engagement, but there might be an opportunity for school engagement, so I wanted to bring that up.
That would be ideal, sounds like.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how and who that would be at the school, but
Yeah,
no
well,
names are coming to mind.
What teacher does the gardening club? I don't know.
It's
Reed?
the same teacher that does the chicken club. That's all I know.
Yeah, I can get the name if, from Chapin works with them, on all the gardening activities. So if
Okay.
that's of interest, Deb, yeah, if you want to get a contact for the students, that would
Yeah,
probably be the right, you could just text Chapin and ask him who does the gardening club.
okay.
Um, it also might be a good, just simply letting the school know that if classes want to take a, outside field trip as weather turns nice toward the end of the school year, that it could be an opportunity for like a classroom walk to go down and learn about no mow May and see a demonstration project about rewilding or returning lawn area to something more diverse.
Yeah. So, if we're, depending on how big this area is, and if we're talking about perennials, I think we'd want a mix of some annual flowers that would look
Hmm.
good this year, but then if we want to plant perennials, it would be better to do that from like small plugs or something that's
Agreed.
already rooted. So is there a little budget for that?
Our treasurer is not with us today, but I would think we have some money in a trails maintenance budget that maybe we could pull. I don't know what, few $100, $500 or whatever. I have no idea what an appropriate cost would be.
It'd be relatively cheap per plant.
What's that, Reed?
Yeah, they'd be relatively cheap per plant. It's not like trees, that,
Yeah.
that I'm imagining, yeah, like $200 would get a decent amount, but we have to see what the square footage of the area is and decide what plants and how many. So maybe Deb, we can, if we do a site visit, we could do a quick assessment of the square footage and then suggest um, what would be nice to purchase, and we can check it against the budget
Okay,
and
yeah.
other projects this year. The only other thing I was going to mention is, yeah, we were talking about smothering the grass. Um, and I think that's something that the demonstration area can talk about is like why why was the ground here tilled? Um, we've tried to do it too with just like a rake, trying to really rough up the ground and disturb the grass enough to get it just doesn't work. You'll get a few flowers maybe, but then it just gets overcrowded with grass. Um, so I think the perennials is a good demonstration that it does take a little bit more attention than just tossing down some annual seeds and hoping that it's going to turn into something beautiful. It might look good for a short period, but really requires just a little bit of thought about what plants, doing a little bit of research on what plants would be appropriate for sort of like meadow habitat in the longer term.
If, is there like do we not want to till just as to continue the demonstration and do the cardboard compost instead? Because that's going to take, like, that should be started very soon. But the tilling would be a quicker way.
I think that we should either do all tilling or we should do tilling and a demonstration section where we do some cardboard because if we put up a little bit of signage or something, just some laminated paper signage that says, this is why it was tilled or is what's going on, then it could talk about, the majority of this area was tilled to allow the new vegetation that's non-grass to take hold. And this section is a demonstration of using cardboard and compost to smother the grass and allow the new plants to take hold, something like that. But I wouldn't try to do a large section with that. I mean, that's more appropriate for somebody's yard, but it would be nice to have a demonstration of what it looks like.
Mhm. Sounds good.
Personally, I'd be in favor of doing something that we are trying to encourage homeowners to model behavior with. I have to say that the tilling sounds really challenging for the majority of homeowners, and if the message is supposed to be simple and easy for school kids, for example, to like
Mhm.
bring the message home, like I do think the consistent messaging of the no mow May is a lot easier to bring home. That being said, I will say that I have an experience with doing a native plant garden. In a former life, we converted an old utility staging parking lot into a native plant garden. And it looked great for about a month. And then it just totally went to seed and sort of became a joke among the workers in that region because it no longer looked like a native plant garden. It looked like a weed patch. And so and I say that in this context because something like that in such a highly trafficked area could
Mhm.
easily backfire on the town where unless you have someone who's actively weeding in a native plant garden, it can very quickly sort of look like a weed patch and it sort of defeats the purpose.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's where the perennials would come in, so that it's not, it would kind of make it grow faster, looking nice, because you're right, that could be awful.
I think a demonstration area is great. I think I'd add in using black plastic. We've done that in the past in some of our research studies where you just lay down black plastic, weight it down with rocks or something, and that kills the grass underneath. Which, and then you just literally remove it, maybe rake a little bit the dead grass away and plant in that.
Yeah, that's another way to do it too.
Yeah, maybe when we do the a site visit, Deb, we can just identify whether we could do like strips of different ways of doing it, and that would be a good way
Yeah,
for the public to learn about what they could try. I do
yeah.
think one other thing, David, to your point, is the article, for instance, Deb, and if we do a little bit of signage at a demonstration site, I think it's important to educate the public about messiness. It reminds me, Kim, a lot about what Ethan had to do over and over and over and over again about Catamount. People expect to see things looking orderly because that's the way that we plant our gardens. We're like, oh yeah, things go in rows, and you have taller plants in the back and shorter plants in the front. I mean, that's just not the way nature works. So there has to be a little bit of education about like, yeah, it looks messy, and that's on purpose because order is not helpful for biodiversity.
Good one.
Yeah, you could probably just steal some of Ethan's signs, and drag
Right.
more, stick them all
Yeah.
there.
I have a wonderful sign from my play space as a kid that says "This mess is a place," and we need something like that that says "This mess is on purpose." This is, it doesn't look like your garden, but that's because it's not your garden.
Mhm. Yeah,
The only question, that all sounds great, good ideas. The only, I guess, concern that I have with this location is just if you could just confirm that it's not in the disc golf area. It looks like, from what I can see on the screen, it looks like it's not, but just, I know that I don't want to get the disc golfers all upset at us.
No, I think we'll be good. It's down past so where Andrew was pointing with his cursor, showing that there's a practice area. Yeah, just a little bit down to the south here. So this area here has three baskets in it for practice disc golf, but the last one is right about just above the cursor there is about where the last one is. And then from
Okay.
there north is all just grass.
Okay,
There's
great.
no activity or planned or
The-
no uses.
The kids ride the mountain bikes up
They
that
do.
little road, they use it as like a little drop. So, it's not unused. Yeah, you can actually see the
Yeah.
mountain bike trail
You
right
can see
there.
the trail, yep. Yeah, and perhaps we could leave that section that way so that we don't interfere with kids who want to bike over the mound. I mean, that's where I learned to mountain bike was on that very dirt mound. So
Mhm.
I was gonna say, I can confirm that my child comes around that corner at 1,000,000 miles an hour so that he can like make it up the mountain without having to pedal. And it's like his did I make it or did I not make it?
determines his
Spot.
day. Yeah.
Did Bruce ever cut the tree that was blocking that path last summer? There's a
There
huge
wasn't,
tree.
I don't think there was a tree at the entryway. There was poison parsnip at the entryway, and I was like, make yourself small.
Good parenting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, anything more on this? Anything, I think we got you, gave you some ideas to work with, Deb, and again, I'd be happy to read that article, edit that article for you when you have it.
Yeah, thank you. I guess our next step is to meet at the site.
Yeah, Deb, I can follow up with you and read and try and organize a time with Todd. And then maybe we can, I think the big discussion too is just how large and how we want to go about doing it. It seems like
Yeah.
the question marks here.
Sounds good.
The other thing I would just add is that we do have 38 no mow May signs left. And planning on having those at the town fair as well.
Cool.
How many were given out last year? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Eric.
That's the question I was gonna ask.
I don't know. I don't know if we had a tally. But I would assume if we got them last year, I'll find out.
I
I thought we got 100.
Yeah.
So I think we gave out something like
That's
60 last year.
Yeah.
But many people kept them, so I think we'll have fewer give outs this year, but we'll likely still. I think that's an appropriate number is what I'm trying to say. I think we might run out, but scarcity is sometimes a good thing. They become precious, and we can order more for the next year. So
Okay.
All right, thank you all.
All right, thanks for your
Thanks,
time,
Deb.
Deb.
Thanks,
Working on
Deb.
this.
Take care.
All right, other business. And before I forget, upcoming meetings, I will not be able to join the group next time. So if you're available next time, Dave.
Good question. Are we getting into April break? Is that? what's
No,
going
I have a meeting I have to go to that day. It's the next meeting is the 17th and then break is the following week.
on? I have to be in Middlebury at 9:30. So
Okay.
glad you pointed that out.
Actually,
So yeah, Middlebury is like an hour drive, so I can probably chair through like 8 o'clock at least, but yeah, I probably need to leave something after that.
okay. So maybe either a short meeting or we have to skip it or reschedule.
I'd say short or skip, but if we need to, I mean, no mow May and green up day planning might be the only thing we really have time for.
Yeah, so we do have the Shelburne representatives planned for that meeting. They were coming to talk about their open space funding. We could try to get them on early if you wanted. I did push them. They were supposed to be at this meeting, and I pushed them off to that meeting because of our HDA schedule.
Okay.
Let's do just a short meeting that day. And
Is that-
prioritize
we need to be
them.
on fire. Yeah.
So the other stuff I think can be pushed at green up day planning. We can probably just talk after the meeting. It doesn't need to be formal. If there's anything else we need to
Okay.
talk about.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. I was just looking at my calendar yesterday. Oh, wait, I cannot do the 17th at all. Be in Burlington by 7:15.
Oh, no, that would be a no-go. Yeah, I just need to leave by 8. It's fine.
All right. CVU WCC partnership. Reed, what's happening with this concept?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we were just talking about projects, and one of them was the Wild About Williston, and it'd be great if we had a little bit of student help to just take the materials and think about how to present them, memorialize them in a way that the public can access them without having been to the event. And so I just submitted, I think while we were in the meeting, I submitted an inquiry to CVU through their excellent outreach portal and got an immediate response. I actually got put in touch with 4 members of staff at CVU all at once. One is I'm trying to find her name. I want to say it's Katie. Let's see here. Yeah, Katie. what's her last name? Antos Ketchum. She staffs the Environmental Action Club at CVU, and while they are interested in what we are doing, the Environmental Action Club is, as I found out, is just like very loose. It's more of like a meetup for students and less of like programming. And for what we would want to do with engaging with them, you know, to write content or to come and staff events or help with cleanup efforts or things like that, that would be, I guess, more formal than what the Action Club would typically do. And so they said, you know, we'll keep in touch with what's going on, but we're more of like a meetup after school kind of thing. So with that in mind, I was connected with 3 other staff members. That was Stan Williams, Troy Parody, and David Trevithick. And each of them has a more formal role at CVU that touches on community engagement and sustainability. So just a quick summary, Troy is in charge of a program called the Nexus program, which is a self-led learning, and essentially students get to create their own coursework and then work with staff to align it with the learning objectives that normal coursework has to. So that's a great opportunity for like independent study type projects if somebody's interested. Then there's David, who is a science teacher, and he is in charge of all of the on-campus enhancements that have been done. So they have basically like an experimental hands-on lab for everything from growing plants to an apiary, keeping bees, solar panels that have been put up, and the students get to learn about like how solar works. So there's all these real world examples that the students get to engage with. And so there's potential that his science classes or other classes that are reaching out to him would have interest. So he's in the loop, but he was unable to make the call that I had. And then Stan Williams is working on community-based learning, and we'll know soon, but it's looking as though that might be an area that actually expands next year as opposed to staying the same or contracting despite the financial challenges for the school district. And so basically what he's looking to do is find businesses and community organizations, town governments, et cetera, that the school can match students to work with and do projects that have a lasting impact, positive impact on communities. And so he's probably going to be my point person for CVU to help get any potential projects to the right places. And he's very interested in finding a way for students next school year to do something substantial with Williston. So he's pretty committed to that idea. And he's been looking at other school districts across the country who have relationships, as well as universities, to try to see how their programs run. But basically, he's trying to create like a consultancy type program where businesses and towns can bring real world problems to him, and he can set students and classes up with projects that address those real world problems. So it would be a way for us to bring a project or a problem statement and have it get to a group or a student who can work on it at CVU. And so I'll just skip to the chase. I think the next steps that we came up with are, it would be great if the WCC, similar to what we've done for UVM classes in the past, if Andrew and the commission can put together a short list of here are some projects that we don't have the bandwidth to do, and we would really appreciate getting some student involvement. Then that can be shopped around to students who want to create their own courses, to classes that want to take on a real world problem together, et cetera. And then Stan is also going to follow up to let me know what changes are happening to his community engagement program. And once we've provided some example projects to them, the CVU team will start working with students, especially heading into next school year. Having that list ahead of time will mean that they can talk to students and to teachers about whether any of the items on the list strike their fancy or align really well with the curriculum that they're trying to do with the students, and then reach back out to us to say, hey, this is something we want to work on with you. And I would also like to consider having Stan or somebody else from the CVU team at some point come to the WCC and talk about what's going on with the upcoming school year that might align with our stuff. But I think the first step is really for us to have a short list of projects for CVU or for UVM classes, whatever, and any sort of student engagement wish list.
Yeah, thanks, Reed. That's actually exactly what I was just thinking too, is as I was listening to you describe the call you had, that it seems like it'd be a good time for us, maybe not today, obviously, but sometime in the next couple months to just brainstorm some different options and opportunities we can explore that would align with this program at CVU, which sounds like the high school version in a way of the field naturalist program types of projects that we do with have run with UVM.
Yeah. I think a good future agenda item to discuss possible projects, and obviously right off the top of my head would be the Jacob Krantz opening in the fall. Could align really nicely with something like that.
Yeah, students could do things like play host on the day of, help lead walks. There's just all different. Yeah, that'd be great. So I think coming up with a short list, maybe that's something we can look to get on an agenda in May or something. Definitely having it at the end of this school year really helps set up the ability to partner with staff for next school year. So there's probably not a lot this spring. There was a mention, there is a 2-week, I think the program is called Rise. There's like a 2-week teacher facilitated project sprint at the end of the school year where students do projects and there's actually a faculty member working with them on it, guiding them. But that's only a 2-week project, so it would have to be something pretty bite-sized. They really thought that the biggest opportunity is to start organizing now so that in the fall, there's a good list for students and staff to work from.
Okay, that sounds good. Maybe Reed, you can find out when. I've already forgotten the person's name. Yeah, who you're suggesting could come in and meet with us.
Stan Williams. Yeah.
Stan, yeah. I would imagine it would be after the school.
Yeah, I think
over,
if we could do our list in May and then bring him in June or something to just have a conversation about the list and about what's likely to occur next year with students, that would be a good time.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Thanks, Reed. Eclipse trail closures.
Yes.
Good luck with this one.
Yeah, seriously.
So I just wanted to mention this. It's something that we're doing. And show you. We have a page up on the town website. Aaron,
I appreciated that you included that. Yeah, because I definitely followed that link.
So this is our specific page that just lists that trails are closed. I also reached out to Trail Finder, which is linked on the state website, and they have their general update, and then all our trails in Williston are also marked on that website that says these trails are closed for the eclipse. I'll be putting out some signage. The enforcement of that is, I won't be out to enforce it.
No.
I have very little authority to do so. But I'm not trying to induce panic, but I'm hoping that our trails aren't heavily impacted. I do know that we're gonna have a lot of people up in the Burlington area, and yeah, it's actually looking, this is anecdotal, but it's looking like the rest of the country is going to be cloudy, and Burlington is actually one of the only sunny areas.
What are the odds of that? This is like a really big deal. It's like we're locked into a high pressure system like 7 days out, where the forecast is all but guaranteed that we've got like minimal cloud cover.
Right.
And everywhere else is really gonna be sucked.
All the
Yeah,
eclipse chasers
crazy.
will be coming here.
And that's what,
Yeah.
so we'll see. I know the state is, and other towns are putting in a lot of effort to keep people off some of the larger state trails. Camel's Hump,
Right.
closing down the whole access road, but
Oh, really?
yeah.
I have a
So-
question about that, Andrew. Like, if trails are closed and people are using them, theoretically, what is our enforcement option? Can we impose, can we fine people? Can we, like,
Haul off to jail.
In the middle of the eclipse?
Arrest!
well, so I'm kind of asking tongue in cheek, but I'm also asking because I think we should, it might be something that we should consider. Just like there's a fine associated with littering, there should be, there should be some sort of consequence for damaging our primitive trail system by using it when it's listed as closed or marked off as closed.
So I think the legal grounds would be trespassing on our land if it's not open. Whether or not,
Okay.
I don't have the authority to trespass someone. And it is kind of funny, but.
You
Yeah.
do, but that seems like legal action, right? Like,
Right, yeah.
I'm sure
And
the
that- I
town
mean-
has the authority, but that seems like
need, like, a
now
police
we're getting
officer to
attorneys involved.
Cite somebody. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that the reality is that our emergency services may be overwhelmed during the time.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
actually pretty likely. And so I think the safety concern is legitimate for people who don't know where they're going, but I hope that's not a problem. I'm planning on having signs up that say that this trail is closed to protect the trail. It's a sensitive time and
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
Would, Andrew, would you
I-
be, oh, sorry, go ahead, David.
I had questions when I saw this on the agenda and then I followed the link and I actually thought the website did a really nice job of explaining why it's a concern. And, I had a reaction when Catamount had their trails closed during COVID. I just desperately wanted to get out for a walk, but all the trails were closed. Well, it was mud season. It's like, yeah, but come on. So I had a similar reaction, but I also can understand the point is that like, it does seem like it's gonna be pretty chaotic on that day. And it's not like these trails are closed Sunday or Tuesday, right? It's really just that Monday.
yeah, and that is a comment that I been in this position not very long, and people do feel that the trail should be closed for mud season.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's a history there, but of any
Not that
discussion.
I recall.
Good ecological management.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
reduces erosion. It's like pretty common practice.
Right,
yeah, and I don't recall, generally speaking anyway, that we have closed our trails in mud season. I think we have casually discouraged people from using them in mud season, but I don't recall any significant like outreach efforts or anything, right?
I do remember one time that Melinda
Mhm.
closed one particularly muddy trail network and she like physically went out and like put up a sign and I cannot even remember what it was or when, but it was like I have like one memory of her being like, it's so bad there right now that I
I
actually
think
went
it
out
was
and put a sign
Sucker Brook
up.
one time had signage up saying, due to wet conditions and trail deterioration, it's closed during this mud period.
Yeah.
No,
So
I
just-
And
forgot what I was
Catamount
gonna say.
historically closes for mud season. Like
Mhm.
that's like something that Jim and Lucy did. Like how they started it. I don't know however long ago.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Andrew, would you be willing to echo what is already listed about why it's closed on that day? We already have something on the website. Would it be possible to just copy and paste that into a Front Porch Forum post to
Yes.
just alert the Williston residents at least that it's closed and why it's closed?
I think that's a great idea. Something
Seems
that I
like it
can,
Yeah, pretty quick to do.
yeah, yep,
What about a QR code on the trails closed sign? That way people can go to it. I don't know if they'd be interested.
I could, yeah, if everybody else thinks that might be useful, I think that,
It could be, if it's
Out of
just gonna
towners.
if it's gonna be a computer printout.
Mhm.
And it's just gonna be laminated or like stapled, might as well put the QR code to this page.
right.
For more
For more
information.
information, this is legitimate, I think that, yeah, we can do that.
To be honest, it seems like Five Tree Hill is really the place that people like no one's gonna be like, ooh, I'm gonna go watch the eclipse from Mud Pond. Like you'd just be staring at a tree canopy.
No, it's true. Sucker Brook is probably one of the main ones. Can anybody think of another trail that would be heavily used?
Yeah,
I think
those-
Five Tree Hill.
yeah, the list.
Yeah, I think Five Tree Hill from
Yeah.
the Sunset Hill Road side is the
Yeah.
easiest way to
Yeah.
get to it. So, I
Yeah.
mean, and that's got all kinds of complications with private parking, public, the roads. I think it's gonna be unbelievably hard to enforce anything. And I mean, I already know probably 50 people that are, oh yeah, we're going up the top of Sunset Hill and watch it.
Oh, no.
So, you know, it's not gonna be easy to
Yeah.
get the word out and to enforce.
Right, so I agree, it won't be enforceable, but I plan to put signs at Sucker Brook, at the trailhead for Five Tree, and then also up the road right below the overlook. I forget the name of it there, there's that
Yeah.
private drive that goes
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
I'll put it there as
Hill
well.
Road or something.
Be worth posting signs or asking stores, businesses to post the signs, and they're like, I'm thinking like Williston Coffee Shop or Starbucks or wherever to post them on their bulletin boards too.
I don't know how much time I'll have to do that this week.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds like minimal return. Nice idea, but
Yeah,
I like the
So-
QR code idea though, because for out of towners, if they pull
Yeah.
up and they see the sign, then they can actually read why it's closed.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think, man, I think the risk of that is low, just for the record. I don't think a lot of our turners are gonna know about Five Tree Hill, but they are gonna see Catamount as a potential, you know, there will be a lot. I know Catamount's actually hosting something though, so
They are.
that's better at least.
Great.
Even if we just keep some people off the trails, it'll still help for emergency response and for trail degradation.
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't plan on getting in my car that day.
I don't either.
I know we're up against time, Eric. I just have one other quick other business update.
Okay.
And that is that Jim Heltz continues to work on the Beaver documentary. My interview with him took place on Friday last week. And it seems to be coming along really well. And he's got a lot of great people that he's interviewing from the state and scientific experts and also community members. So it went well. And if anybody's interested in the type of information that I shared with him about my perspective as a conservation commissioner, I wrote up some notes that I worked off of for giving my interview. So happy to share those.
Okay, great. Thanks, Reed. And while I'm thinking about it, I saw that you renewed or offered to renew your membership to the Conservation Commission for another 4-year term. So thanks for sticking with us for another term, assuming the select board reappoints you.
Yes, at their pleasure.
Yeah.
You guys haven't driven me away yet.
All
Thanks,
right.
Reed.
Thanks, Rita.
Anything else for today? All right, then we will adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Take care.
I think it's gonna be a madhouse.
Oh, it's gonna
I-
be starting
I'm-
probably